Baskerville family's hound, Victor van Baskerville. According to the hounds that was loyal to his family and father, he was falsely charged and framed for associating with the Demon Clan, and was sentenced to the guillotine. At the guillotine, staring at the mastermind behind his execution, he decided, if he were to live again, after he caught the rabbit, his prey, he would not live as a hound again. Suddenly, we see a baby's cradle. Babies crying, but one amongst them stand out, confused and wondering where this is. The baby, still not knowing that it's a baby, wonder why its body is heavy and surrounding is loud, but suddenly comes to the conclusion that this might be hell, the grand estate of the Baskerville family. Inside is where all the babies are kept in their cradle. A man walks in looking really furious, says that these children are insignificant brats. His name, Hugo Le Baskerville, Baskerville family patriarch, walking away. He says that there aren't any special children here, that he thinks that it's only trash that's gathered here this time. But as he walks, he notices a baby in a cradle. Still looking pissed, he gives an expression of uncertainty, and says that the trash in this cradle is quieter. Moving forward, he orders that the children be moved to the Cradle of Swords. The baby, staring seriously at Hugo Le Baskerville, says to itself that the main culprit of his framing and execution is that man, Hugo Le Baskerville. This is Hugo's younger appearance. He's certain now. He, Victor van Baskerville, regressed to when he was a baby. It's just like rewinding the hand of clock but still having all the memory from the life you lived before. In his past life, he lived as a hound. Born from an illegitimate family, he received training in a poor environment. A hound must be devoted to his mission. Assassination, intelligence, ambush, threatening, etc. A hound needs to take care of all kinds of dirty work. Everything was done in order to make the Baskerville family the best of all the 7 families. And the reason he stayed loyal was simple. He wanted to be acknowledged by the family and Hugo. 10 years after the gate to the demonic realm opened, the fight against demons ended with the humans being victorious. The reward that was given to the loyal hound who served the family his whole life was being put down, killing and eating the hound that hunted the rabbit. There was only one reason why he was being executed: the fact that the hound knew too much. Clenching his baby fist, he promises to never live that life again. He wants to take his revenge right now, but with a newborn's body, he can't do anything. He then states that being moved to the Cradle of Swords is a good opportunity to become strong, and right now he needs to become stronger. Cradle of Swords. Children born into the Baskerville family needs to go through one trial. The children are thrown into a maze of swords, and after going through that, they need to get to the Styx River to be examined for their talent. The Styx River is a legendary river that turns the body into iron. However, there's a limit to how many children it can affect. In order to get to the Styx River first, the babies need to head straight out of the helix-shaped wall of blades. Victor van Baskerville remembers that in his past life, he was ousted by his siblings and couldn't receive the effect, but assures himself that it would be different this time. This time, he is the first to crawl out of the wall of blades and straight into the Styx River. He promises that he will monopolize the Styx River blessing for as long as he can. The blood from his wounds starts to change the color of the river. As he continues to go deep inside the river, he notes that the water is seeping into his body and bones through his cuts. To think that having a great start makes such a big difference. Even though he's starting to feel that he can no longer hold his breath, he resolves to the fact that he needs to endure for as long as he can. No matter how painful it is, he needs to endure, because he has been in the water way too long. The instructors worry for him, shouting for him to come out now, that he's going to die if he stay underwater any longer, while the other shouts for someone to get him out. But Hugo finds this very interesting as he laughs. Hugo then calls Barrymore, the head butler of the Baskerville family, and asks him how much time has passed since the baby got in the river. Barrymore then tells him that around 7 minutes have passed. Even after hearing how much time has passed, he remains calm, saying, 7 minutes, he might die. But they still worry, asking that he does something. Finally, he says, son, you may come out now. But after hearing the command, Victor notes that that's Hugo's voice and says, that is Hugo's voice? You think I'd come up so easily? While still trying to stay longer in the river, he then foolishly opens his mouth, stating that he needs to absorb as much as he can until the end, but immediately starts coughing and drowning. Still, as his life fades away, he refuses to swim back up and tries to endure. Suddenly, before the greedy child die, he is pulled out by the leg. Hugo, holding him upside down, says, look at this child, look at this kid. Being in the Styx River wasn't enough for him, he even drank it. He also notices that the baby already has teeth as well. So he asks Barrymore what the name of the child is, which Barrymore say that is Master Victor van Baskerville. So he looks back at the child and call out his name, Victor, and say that it seems a very greedy son has been born. But Victor, hanging on to his life, furiously says in his mind that Hugo should enjoy this as much as he can. For right now, he needs to use this time to sharpen his canines silently, and when the time comes for him to rip his master's head off, the Baskerville family will disappear into history. by his Vicar van Baskerville's hands. Hugo Le Baskerville's bastardized son, Vicar van Baskerville. At 8 years of age, he was talented enough to be called a genius, but he was considered ordinary in his family. At 20 years of age, he took on assassination, espionage and conquest-type missions. At 29 years of age, he felt that he has reached his limit in swordsmanship compared to those of direct lineage. At 30 years of age, the gate leading to the demonic realm opened, marking the beginning of the demon clan's invasion. At 35 years of age, he endured through the era of destruction, slaughtering monsters left and right. At 39 years of age, the demon war finally came to an end with the victory of the human realm. At 40 years of age, he was rewarded for his loyalty. The reward was defamation, false accusations, and the guillotine's blade. After the incident at the River Styx, Vicar wakes up in an unfamiliar place, wondering where he is. He then deduces it to be a nursery, which makes him realize that he has successfully absorbed the Styx River. While still in his thoughts, saying that he now has a better starting point than before, a nurse is handed a box, but she complains. Vicar then turned to listen in on the conversation, with the nurse calling someone madam and asking her why she would want that kind of thing in young Master Vicar's bed. Vicar wondered who this madam might be, stating that no one would give him a bastard a present. The madam then leaves the box in his cradle and immediately turns to leave. As soon as she leaves, the box opens, and with a venomous snake coming out and scaring Vicar at first, because he recognizes them as the bloody mamba, but regains his stand, thinking if it's the madam that sent these vipers to assassinate him, because he knows that there are only a few in Baskerville who would be called madam. Whoever it was, she was probably trying to reduce competition. As the snakes charge at him, he remains calm, though he states that these could kill all of the babies in the nursery. Knowing what he knows, he grabs the snakes by the neck, strangling them to death. With a very satisfied look on his face, he say that this is as expected of the Baskerville, and that he'll bring this entire family down with his own 2 hands. The next thing, blood stains all over his sheets. The next day, nobody could believe what they see. The people of Baskerville were shocked when they found the child sleeping peacefully next to the dead vipers. All the nanas who had been on shift that night were executed after torture, but the reason for the viper's appearance remained unknown. Only the young hound knew the truth. 8 years later, the kids are gathered in a classroom receiving lectures. The lecturer then calls them young masters and tell them that today they will learn the levels of swordsmanship. He tells them that if they cannot yet imbue the sword with mana, they are considered a sword beginner. Also, the level at which you can infuse the blade with a little bit of mana is called Sword Expert. When the blade emits aura in liquid-like aura form, that is Sword Graduator. Lastly, the level at which the aura is solid and the form can freely be changed is called Sword Master. He also tells them that the strongest Baskerville, Sir Hugo Le Baskerville, is at that level, and this leaves all the kids amazed. But Vicar, who is lost in thoughts, thinking that if Hugo was already a sword master at this point in time, then he'll need to regain the power he had prior to his regression before the coming-of-age ceremony. The lecturer noticed that Vicar is lost in thought again. Staring at Vicar, he says to himself that Vicar has earned a strong physique by diving in the Styx River for 7 minutes and that you only need to teach him one thing for him to learn 100. He also say that Vicar is much more talented than the others and that the patriarch will be very happy to know of his progress. Vicar still in his thoughts, thinking of how many years it will take to kill Hugo. Vicar van Baskerville, 8 years of age. We then see these triplet all staring at Vicar with bloodlust. Outside the classroom, the triplet pushes Vicar to a corner, calling him garbage van. One of them then tell him that they have been hearing some rumors about him, and the other 2 say, yeah, simultaneously. One then say this to him. Apparently, you dived in the Styx River for 7 minutes and strangled 2 vipers to death when you were a baby. Vicar doesn't respond but just stares at them, recalling a memory from his past. He states that he know about these guys all too well, that they are the ones who stabbed him when he was running away after the defamation. They are called Hugo Le Baskerville Trident. They all simultaneously tell him to stop lying about being in the Styx River for 7 minutes. The first one, Highborough Le Baskerville, 9 years of age. The second one, Midborough Le Baskerville, 9 years of age. The third one, Lowborough Le Baskerville, 9 years of age. They keep talking simultaneously, while Vicar just look at them. Knowing them fully well, he states that they are going to be a real pain in the ass in just 10 years. So it might be a good idea to put them in their place now. One of them then suddenly points a knife at Vicar, telling him that he heard that if you stay in the Styx for too long, your body becomes like steel, which means you can't be injured by blades. So he asks Vicar if he won't die after being stabbed. Highborough then calls Lowborough, giving him a sign, which he understands. Lowborough immediately puts Vicar in a chokehold and covers his nose with his other hand. This confuses Vicar at first, but Lowborough then tell him that if he actually spent 7 minutes in the river, Then he'll eat his hand if Vicar can endure for 3 minutes. Vicar then thinks to himself that he guesses it's true that children are cruel, but decides to play along for a bit. A minute later, the remaining two having the same thoughts that there's no way a legend like that is true. A minute later, 3 minutes later, this time they are starting to look nervous and openly saying that he's good. 10 minutes later and they are both freaked out, realizing that the legend was true. They agree to let him go, that this is no fun. But as Loboro lets go of Vicar, he realizes that his fingers are no longer complete. After this realization, he begins to shout in pain, which makes the other ask Vicar what he's doing. Vicar then looks at them with bloodlust and asks him if he didn't say he'd eat his hand. Hibaro then say to him that he's not scared of him, same as Midboro, but Loboro says otherwise, which makes both brothers look at him weirdly, but he instantly replies, telling them that he got his finger bitten off. So, Hibaro tells him to calm down, and that they should go ask the priest to put it back. Midboro agrees, while Loboro still sobs, but Vicar suddenly asks them who let them go. This infuriates Hibaro, so he goes for the first attack, stabbing Vicar in the stomach and asking him if he forgot that he's a year older. But after stabbing Vicar, he notices something. The knife didn't pierce through Vicar's skin. Then, Vicar tells them that they seem to be the ones who forgot, bending his hand to cause him severe pain. He reminds them that they are Baskerville, where power and talent overcome age. Still bending and squeezing Hibaro's hand, he gets excited. With that much bloodlust, he tells the kids that they should keep playing until the end. Feeling the pain from Vicar's grip, Hibaro, terrified, shouts that the rumors were true, but suddenly gets his teeth smashed in by a blow to the face from Vicar. He falls to the ground, leaving Midboro pissed and Loboro terrified. Midboro, out of anger, gets ready to fight, calling Vicar a bastard, but Vicar immediately smashes his jaw with a swift kick to the face. Now facing Loboro, he gets terrified and falls to the ground, but Vicar tells him to not be scared, that he'll get better in no time as soon as he is treated. Picking up their knife, he tells Loboro that he won't let him leave this room, that he would have to live with the discomfort of his own body at this rate. Still, he smiles and tells Loboro that he would be generous and let one of them leave right now. Loboro then asks him if he's being real. Standing behind his brothers, he asks which one of them can leave. Vicar then throws their knife in front of them. Calling them brothers, he tells them that they would have to decide that for themselves. Turning his back against them, he tells them that he can't wait so long, so they would have to decide quickly. And with a grin smile, he asks them if at least one of them shouldn't live. The brothers get in a state of utter shock and confusion at first, but immediately start having some evil thoughts, looking closely at each other, while Vicar stands on the side, enjoying how the Triton of Baskerville started to split. Time has passed at another location in the Baskerville estate. Barrymore gives a report to the patriarch, Hugo Baskerville, that there was another bloody situation with the Moth clan in the Ruby Mines, that the Morgue clan is stating that the Ruby Mine is their territory. Hugo responds, telling Barrymore that the opportunity to discuss that matter will come soon, that the Morgue clan will seek them out first, so he asks if there's anything else to report. Barrymore then tells him that regarding the intern evaluation of the juvenile fortress, Master Vicar has scored the highest on the written exam. This puts a short smile on Hugo's face as he asks if that's so. He then asks Barrymore when the practical exam for the children at the juvenile fortress will commence. Barrymore tells him that it begins in 5 days, and that the Guardian Knights have vacated the premises in preparation. Hugo then says that the fortress must be completely vacant. Before leaving, Barrymore has one more thing to tell the patriarch Hugo Le Baskerville. Calling him my lord, Barrymore tells him that there is one matter that he needs to inform him about the juvenile fortress, which is that there has recently been a big fight amongst the young masters. A big fight, Hugo asks, so he asks how many of them died. Barrymore responds, telling him that there are no casualties, but Master Hibaro teeth has been completely damaged, Master Midboro jaw has been smashed in, and Master Loboro's left index finger has been amputated. Of course, he says that they've all recovered their health since being treated, but the psychological damage done to them seems significant. But this doesn't make any sense to Hugo, as he says that they wouldn't have fought amongst themselves since they are so close. Barrymore proceeds to tell him that there was some friction with another young master, and that the person who wounded the 3 young master is the 8-year-old young master, Master Vicar, the one with the highest score on the written exam. This leaves Hugo in so much shock. A few minutes later, Master Vicar Van Baskerville has been summoned to meet the patriarch, Hugo Le Baskerville. Hugo smiles as he casually tells Vicar that he has grown since the last time he saw him. Vicar also returns the greeting, saying, "Hello, Patriarch." Hugo is surprised to be called Patriarch by Vicar, but says, "Yes, I suppose I am." Hugo then goes straight to the point, telling Vicar that he heard that he disabled the 9-year-old triplet in his senior class. Vicar, acting cocky, tells Hugo that if he's referring to those brothers, then he believes they have received proper treatment since then. Hugo then put up a serious face and tells Vicar that he's not talking about physical disability, that he's talking about the disability of the heart. He proceeds, telling Vicar that since that day, the triplet have been eating separately, and now they don't even speak to each other anymore, saying that their combat technique was quite decent, but now their relationship is completely torn apart. But Vicar remains silent, which makes Hugo ask him if he doesn't think he was wrong. Vicar responds, asking Hugo what he did that was wrong, and Hugo tells him that he has turned his brothers into a total mess. Vicar finally responds properly. With a deadly look, he says, "But I am stronger. How can the stronger person be wrong?" But Hugo still tell him that his brothers came in ahead of him and stated that they will graciously forgive him. So he asks Vicar if he still don't feel an ounce of guilt. With a smile, Vicar asks, "They forgave me?" Vicar remembers a time from before his regression. The youngest daughter of a family that was ruined by the Baskervilles clan came to pay Hugo a visit. She had become a nun after many years. She told Hugo, "I forgive you," and offered a mass. And Hugo's response after that mass was what Vicar is about to say now. "I believe forgiveness is just an excuse made by the weak who cannot seek revenge due to their lack of strength." Hearing these words from Vicar fills Hugo with joy, and he responds, telling Vicar that only the strong will reign supreme. That weakness is a sin. He then commends Vicar on understanding the family motto very well. Hugo now calls Barrymore, who responds. Hugo tells Barrymore to allow Vicar to take whichever snack he wants from the food storage, just enough that he can carry out on his own. Vicar smiles and asks if he may have chocolate, thanking the patriarch. After that, Sir Barrymore walks him out. But before leaving, the patriarch calls him "my son" and tells him to try to do well on the interim evaluation exam, which surprises Vicar. The patriarch still tell him to make sure he doesn't lose to the direct descendants. Vicar gets even more confused, but responds, saying, "Yes, sir." Sir John Barrymore brings him to where the chocolates are stored, and tells him that this is the infamous chocolate that's enjoyed by the gourmands of the Morg clan, and that this is the highest quality they obtain with much difficulty. Vicar then tells them that he doesn't want anything processed. This comes as a shock to Barrymore. Vicar turns, telling him that he needs the cocoa beans, ones that have a rich aroma. Even more surprised, Barrymore asks him if that's what he really wants. They hand Vicar the beans. One of the worker then tell Vicar that these are bloody beans known for their rich aroma, and with one bean, you can produce 100 liters of chocolate. Barrymore, who has been carefully observing Vicar, thinking that to eat such bitter beans on their own, Vicar must really love chocolate. He wonder, looking at Master Vicar, he suppose within the restrictions the patriarch has set for him, he has found a way to have as much chocolate as possible. Even one of the staff thinks of this as a brilliant idea, so he asks Master Vicar if he wants them to process them and send to his room. But Vicar tell him that there won't be a need for that. This confuses John Barrymore as he now question if Vicar just have peculiar tastes. Vicar did not want the chocolate to eat it. The bloody beans would be used during the practical exam within 5 days. On this day, a huge catastrophe would occur that has never happened in the Baskerville clan before. In this world, the Baskerville family is referred to as the Berserker family. The children from that family are put through a thorough early education. When they're able to take their first steps, for the basic stamina, they need to run up a steep mountain. And except for the allocated times, they aren't allowed to lie down on their stomach. When it's time to sleep, in order to adjust to a tough environment, they need to sleep alongside a monster corpse. When that period ends, they are 8 years old, and the young hounds would start their deadly evaluation. This is what caused the Baskerville family to be called the Berserker family. Practical evaluation, survival exam. And today, in a mountain that's located on the outskirts of the territory, filled with monsters, the young hounds gather at the La Rouge at Lenore Mountain. Baskerville family instructor, Shadow Dog, Pavlov Van Baskerville, tells the young masters that the basic contents of the practical examination is simple. The young masters would need to survive here in the mountains for a month and would need to hunt large and strong monsters. He warns them that they would need to be mindful of these two conditions and survive. He also tells them that the points for being successful in surviving is 10 points. If anyone survives without becoming disabled, it's 30 points. If anyone survives after defeating a monster, it's 70. Anyone who fulfill all the above conditions will receive 90 points. Additionally, if anyone steals someone else's badge, additional points will be given. If you die, 0 points. Lastly, there are no 100 points. The instructor also tells them that he hopes they remember Sir Hugo's lesson, that a swordsman dies the moment they become arrogant. He informs them that it is not advised to exit the designated area, as La Rouge at Lenore Mountain is a restricted area with many undiscovered things. He also tells them that it is recommended that they move within the given space where they have subjugated the monsters, and that during the exam, shadow dogs, guardian knights, will be hiding and grading them. Some children, looking at Vicar, talk amongst themselves, questioning if that's not him, the one that was in the Styx River for 7 minutes. The other replies, saying that there's even rumor saying that he killed 2 poisonous snakes inside the cradle. They continue talking while Vicar doesn't respond. One say that they even heard that Vicar received full marks on the theory examination, and they say that this will be their chance to see if he's good at the practical aspect too. But Vicar just smile, thinking about how it's been a while since he's been here at the La Rouge at Lenoir Mountain. The triplet doesn't say a word and just turn to the director, who holds a bell, and tell them that at the sound of the bell, the exam starts. As he rings the bell, he tells them that he pray for their fortune. Immediately, all children are dismissed from his presence. One of the 9-year-old children gets excited as he thinks to hurry up and occupy an advantageous area. So he say that he'll go to the place he saw in last year's exam. Other children behind him, one have a thought that there's no way he can survive alone, while the others say he'll follow him and take it from him. The triplet, still disorganized, Hibaro tells his brother to go and occupy a particular area, but Midbaro refuses, telling Hibaro to not order him around. Same as Lobaro, who tell both of them to do things themselves and leave him out of it. The instructor takes a drag of his cigarette and say, so it has begun. In this exam, he recalls that it's not encouraged to kill others. It's not prohibited, but it's discouraged. If you kill someone else, you'll be deducted points. So everyone tries their best in order not to kill someone easily. But finally say that, well, the shadow dogs will do their best in order to keep casualties to a minimum. One of the shadow dogs hiding behind a tree, Wonder. As he observes Vicar, he states that this area is close to the restricted area, so he wonder where Master Vicar is going. Recalling that Vicar is a genius who have distinguished himself from childhood. This makes him look forward to see the skills Vicar will show. Looking at a tree, Vicar questions if this is the place. Using a stick to check the hardness of the ground, he says that with the ground being soft, it'll be fine. So he say that since he have decided where he'll be living for the time being, he shall relax and take a break. The shadow dog watching him gets confused, because he doesn't understand why Vicar would want to take a break. Vicar spends his time gathering woods and other supplies, while the others fight amongst themselves to get additional points. Vicar spends most of his days preparing a comfortable place to stay. Meanwhile, his brothers fight and hunt dangerous monsters. Still, Vicar stays very calm, not giving a care in the world. The shadow dog watching him is totally confused. Looking at Vicar, he questions how long it has been since Vicar has rested while digging a hole. And besides that, all he does is hunt for food or gather equipment, so he wonders if Vicar is planning on hiding here. Vicar's behavior makes him question if the rumor about him being a genius are fake. Realizing that it seems to be the case, the shadow dog leaves the scene, stating that if Vicar is just going to hide, then there's really no need to observe him. Vicar still acts like he doesn't know the shadow dog has left, but finally smile because the shadow dog is gone. Roasting his dinner, he states that camping outside reminds him of the old days. He remembers a time before his regression, when he was the leader of a squad, and one of his brothers tell him that cacao beans are used to make the fish smell less fishy, and bloody beans that have a high concentration of cacao are the best. After this memory, Vicar throws some bloody beans into his fire, and watch as it burns slowly. Now, he say that the one who is interfering is gone, and he has finished everything he needed to prepare. Finally, it's now time for him to start his hunt. A few days later, Vicar walks inside the restricted area, stating that this point onward is the unknown restricted area. But he also states that during his scouting days, he was going around this place casually. As he walks further, he perceives a burning smell that pierces his nose. It's the smell of burnt tree roots, and he's sure that guy's habitat is around here. Suddenly, he hears a burning sound. He turns to where it's coming from, and sees it, the burning stool. There's only one monster around here that has that kind of dropping. As he stand before the ferocious beast, he say that he thought these were annoying in his scouting days, but seeing it like this he's actually happy. A ferocious beast, a hellhound. The hellhound growl at him as it prepared to burn him alive. Looking at the hellhound, he describes it as the lookout monster that swallowed the hellfires of the oil world, and that he was barely able to defeat one alone at the age of 18 in his past life. Of course, being 8 years old now, it's way more impossible for him to defeat it alone. However, he knows of a way where even a child can take care of a hellhound. Him and the hellhound both go for each other at the same time, dashing towards each other for the first kill. The hellhound's first weakness is that they can only move in straight lines. They find it difficult to suddenly change directions. The hellhound is confused at what it sees Vicar doing. Vicar pours some liquid substance on the ground, stating that hellhound's second weakness is that, strangely enough, lookout monsters are unable to cross water even if it may be a very shallow depth of water. So he pours the water in front of himself. The water slows down the hellhound significantly as it moves forward while exposing the weakness common to all canine monsters, opening their mouth while running. Vicar uses this opportunity to flick a bloody bean in its mouth, and also evades its attack, allowing for it to go past him and land on the other side. He turned to look at the hellhound, and almost instantly, the hellhound starts to feel the impact of the bloody bean. It falls to the ground and begins to whimper, while Vicar smile and say that chocolate is poison to canines. And when it comes to the bloody bean which can make 100 liters of chocolates with just one of it, it's obvious what it'll do to a canine monster. With a killer look, he unsheathes his sword, saying that he guess even the hounds of hell can't win against chocolate. Standing next to the hellhound about to deliver the final blow, he say that the chocolate probably first affect the hellhound's stomach and heart, but its hard ribs protect those. So what he has to aim for is the weak spot where the ribs aren't present. The answer is the kidney. With a swift stab to the kidney, the hellhound whimper in pain, and Vicar shows no expression on his face. He removes his sword from its flesh, causing it to smoke out from the spot where it was stabbed. Vicar explains that when you catch a monster, an energy called XP or karma accumulates in the body and makes the body stronger. He also notes that the short sword has gotten lighter than before, and at this rate, he'll be able to catch up to where he was before his regression before he is of age. Looking at the dead hellhound, he wonder what kind of expression Hugo will make when an 8-year-old brings back a monster with a risk rating of B+. With this, Vicar has basically secured the position of the first place in the practical test, and has decided what reward he is going to ask for. An enormous reward he would have never dreamed of asking for in his past life. He'll take that, the value of which no one of this era knows, for himself. As he's about to take the head of the hellhound, he hears some sounds. A hellhound approaches. He wonders what's going on as he turns and sees hellhounds in their numbers. Still, he remains unfazed, saying that they must have heard the cries of the one which he killed. So he asks if they intend on avenging their kind. Regardless, he slashed the head of the hellhound he killed, saying that it's so heartwarming for them to want to avenge their kind. He turns to the rest of them and say that he never planned to kill just one anyway, so he asks that they come on, that he still have a lot of beans left. However, the hellhounds stop in their tracks upon sensing a superior presence. Vicar doesn't understand the sudden fear in them, so he wondering if they're scared of a mere 8-year-old's bloodthirst, but also states that hellhounds would never submit to their prey even if they were to die. So he wonders what it could be. Turning back, he sees something else. It's a 3-headed beast coming from behind him. A Cerberus that has a risk rating of A+. This makes Vicar worry, because this monster habitats the 7th ridge, so he questions why it's down here on the 1st. But looking closely, he notices something. The Cerberus is bleeding. Now that he's looking closer at it, it's got multiple arrows stuck in its body and other injuries, which make him wonder if someone was trying to hunt it. That's right. He recalls that across the mountain is the barbarian tribe's territory, and if it came all the way here because it was being chased, then this is his chance. An injured A+ monster. He would need to kill it no matter what. Vicar had been hiding his power back at the Baskerville household. This includes the fact that he had already reached a high level of expertise as a sword expert, and that he had mastered the Baskerville's 3rd technique. He had already reached the level that other hounds would attain when they turn into adults. He then plunged straight for the Cerberus. For his first attack, he swung his sword straight for one of its heads, but at that instant, he notices one of its head about to bite off his hand. So he quickly swings to slash that head, but the Cerberus dodges it. But that doesn't stop Vicar, as he tells himself that he can do it, that an injured Cerberus is doable. Before his regression, Vicar had refined his swordsmanship through war with the demon clan to the point where there was no sign of unnecessary movements to his techniques. Plus his body had been strengthened by the Styx River. All the weapon Vicar possessed was working well against the Cerberus. No, he thought it was working. That's what he thought, until his sword broke right on a direct impact with the Cerberus. A moment when he had let his guard down allowed the Cerberus to use its claws, which broke his sword and sends him flying and crashing right into a tree, causing him severe pain and internal bleeding which makes him cough out blood. Cerberus, risk rating, A+ size, 7 meter, site of discovery, 7th ridge of the La Rouge et Lenoir mountain, also called the Watchdog of Hell, has no interest in those who are entering the underground, but rips those who try to escape into pieces as though they are rags, resides in a place where all the dead spirits are headed. It is also known as the ultimate lookout monster. As he sit there on the ground almost passed out, he immediately gets himself back, realizing that he's still in battle. He questions if he just lost consciousness, also recalling that he just received the direct attack of the Cerberus. He can still feel the pain in his left arm, so he wonders if it has been ripped out. But looking at it, he realizes that it's still intact but with a slight injury. He knows the Cerberus is wounded, but for the injury to stop at just that. He wonders if it's because of the effect of the Styx River. So we all say hooray for the Styx River. The Cerberus plunged to deliver the final blow, but Vicar jumps out the way, stating that the damage is still remaining and he can't afford to take a second hit. Difficult voyage, but an experienced hunter must find the best way out of situations like this. The best possible decision right now is to run away with his tail tucked between his legs. If it weren't for the injury on its side, Vicar would have been torn apart already. He should thank the barbarian tribe that's over the mountains, still trying to run away. He thinks that if he can get past that iron fence, he'll be out of the restricted area. As he scales the fence, he's sure that if he can just get to that place he prepared, it'll be his win. But if he gets caught before then, he'll die by the jaws of this three-headed ferocious beast. He continues to run as fast as he can, knowing that the Cerberus is catching up to him, thinking of where the place he prepared is, thinking that it should be around here somewhere. Looking ahead, he finally finds it, using all the strength he has, trying to get to it, for it's just a bit further, just a bit more, pushing himself harder, a bit more. Finally, he shouts, "Now," and leap to flip straight ahead. The Cerberus also follows, jumping, and the Cerberus is this close to separating Vikir's head from his body. It lands on a designated spot prepared by Vikir, and growls as it suddenly starts to fall. Vikir also has a very rough landing. While on the ground, he turns his head to look at the Cerberus as it falls, saying, "Welcome to the cradle of swords, Cerberus." It gets multiple stabs from the pit trap Vikir set. Vikir gets up, and is in awe to think that he'd used the trap he laid out to fight hellhounds on capturing Cerberus. He also recalls that the Cerberus is the same species of cannid monsters like the hellhounds, which means the bloody beans essence that he spread on the wooden spears will act as poison for them. Even though that's what he thinks, the Cerberus still struggles regardless of the poison. So, Vikir aims another wooden spear at the Cerberus, saying that since it's a high-ranking demon, he guesses it's not going to die instantly. With all his might, he throws the spear straight at the Cerberus, but it only hit its body and bounces off. This further angers the ferocious beast, making it to growl very loudly and start walking out of the pit. But Vikir stands unfazed, looking at the Cerberus and counting from 1 in his head. He still doesn't move and continues to count, and it further approaches him. He's now up to the count of 5, 6. The Cerberus is this close to Vikir as he counts 7, but suddenly starts to tremble, and suddenly starts to spit out something disgusting from its mouth. Finally, Vikir sighs, feeling a good sense of relief. Looking at the fallen Cerberus, Vikir says that it was exactly 7 steps, and that the rumors were true. He also states that the wooden spear that he tossed just now is different from the others. It is a spear laced with the bloody mamba's venomous fang that won't let you walk more than 7 steps once you've been bit, so he says that it's a good thing he saved it when he was younger. Suddenly, he says that he can feel the energy of the Cerberus seeping in. Finally, all 3 heads are dead. Anyhow, he questions how he is going to carry this back, stating that the cause of its death will be quite obvious. So he thinks maybe the guardian knight who saw him carve the wooden spears will be his witness. But he says that there's something else he must do. The Cerberus are gatekeepers that protect their territories, so it must have been protecting its dungeon somewhere nearby. The dungeon, a mysterious place that harbors treasure. Sometimes powerful monsters use them as their lair. So, Vikir thinks that since the gatekeeper is gone, the dungeon is probably empty. By spreading the feces of the Cerberus, he's sure he could avoid battling small monsters. He thinks of a way to backtrack the Cerberus dungeon, so he thinks dried soil, rotten leaves, moist roots, footprints, and drool. That's how he'll backtrack it. Walking up to a particular point, he says, "Found it," standing in front of a dungeon alone. He say that this is the dungeon the Cerberus was guarding. He recalls being here prior to his regression, and this dungeon will be discovered in the next 10 years, but it will be completely empty when that happens. Although, right now, it's not. He can sense the mana that's underneath the rotten surface, and he's certain the dungeon hasn't been cleared yet. Walking further inside, he says that he doesn't see any light, so he guesses it's deeper than he thought, which altogether makes him excited. Going in deeper, he wonder what kind of treasure are waiting deep inside. But the further he goes, the more curious he gets, stating that there are vines of ruby minerals throughout the area, which means it must be connected to the Red All Mountain. Suddenly, he sees a light, and he wonders if that's the entrance to the main dungeon. Upon getting closer, the light gets so bright it's almost blinding. Finally, he gets to where the light is emanating from, stating that the dungeon's interior is bright, almost as if mana is imbued into the ring to emit light. Standing right next to it, he pauses to think, also seeing that someone was here before him, with a written note in front of the skeleton. As he bends to pick up the note, he notices that the injuries on the skeleton are from stabbing, also pointing out that there are dried brown bloodstains, so he realized that it must have been a while. This is what the note says: "It doesn't matter what my name is. I'll just call myself Cain. There's no need to dirty this pure white paper with my name." Vikir that's reading the note realizes that this handwriting is a Baskerville's, which make him question if it means that the writer is also a Baskerville. He continues reading the note, which states, "I write this so that the future generations do not make the same mistakes as I did. The stone chamber has been talked about within the family as a legend. My brother, Abel, and I coincidentally came across this place, and we raided this dungeon which consisted of countless trials. We killed many monsters and arrived at this chamber to find the final assignment of this place. That assignment tied our feet here for a very long time. 3 years. Vicar, looking at the note, states that for the writer to have been here for 3 years, then they must have wanted the treasure real bad, which makes him certain that the final assignment must be in here somewhere. Looking at the glowing stone, he say that it must be this, so he reads what was written there. It says, when entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. Back to the note, the writer say that his brother and himself contemplated over the ominous text forever. In the end, they came to a conclusion. His twin brother and himself were one in their mother's womb, but when they were given birth to, they were separated into 2. In other words, in order to take this dungeon's treasure, they need to become one again. They have come to a conclusion. That means that only one of them could leave with the treasure, which means blood would be spilled. After a fierce battle, the writer ended up killing his own brother. After that, there was only one of them left in the stone chamber. Despite that, there was no change, which made him almost run mad. They definitely went from 2 to 1, so why couldn't he take the treasure? He killed his own brother, he killed him. After moments of regrets, he decided to leave the dungeon. So he states in the note that he wants to tell those who are brave enough to find this place to leave immediately. That there's nothing to obtain from this devil's den that only serves to taunt humans. Vicar, after reading the note, says that in conclusion, they came all the way here after countless challenges, but left with nothing. Although he's stating that he doesn't have a twin. Looking at the text, he sees that the assignment is the same despite the fact that he doesn't have a twin. That means Cain and Abel misinterpreted the text. When entering, it's 1, but once inside, it's 2. When leaving, it's 1. So he wonder what it could mean. Taking everything into consideration, he forces himself to think because he knows that there's no dungeon that's too hard to beat. Finally, an idea hits him as he stares at the skeleton. And yes, he's sure that he's got the answer, with a satisfied look on his face. He says, I see, Cain and Abel were unlucky. It's because they were 2 that they could not solve the problem. They were hindered by a fixed idea. So, Vicar say, a dark passageway and a contrasting bright stone chamber. He then conclude that the answer to the riddle lies in the dungeon, saying, I am 1 when entering through the dark passageway. But as soon as the ruby's light casts a shadow on me, I became 2. So he smashes the ruby, saying that when darkness re-enters is when the stone chamber's final stage will open. With that grin on his face, he say that the answer is shadow. The ruby shattered to pieces on the ground starts emoting a dark presence. Then, from underneath the ruby, the shattered ruby emits a very red and bright color smoke, with Vicar standing in awe as he watch. He then say that the cause of the 2 brothers' deaths isn't because they are twins, but the relic of the devil's den, staring at a weird-looking demonic sword. He reads the inscription underneath the sword which states that only those with Baskerville's blood will be able to take Beelzebub. The name Beelzebub makes Vicar shout, questioning if this is where it originates from. He recalls seeing an illustration of a picture book once during the childhood of his past life. The gluttonous fly, Beelzebub, an unprecedented great monster that invaded this continent in the old legends. The devil's holy constellation, also called the 7 calamities. In order to stop the 7 calamities, the 7 families' heads stepped up to take on a devil's holy constellation each. The devil's holy constellation that the first Baskerville patriarch fought was the gluttony, Beelzebub. The remnants of Beelzebub was stored in the land of Baskerville, and Beelzebub's demonic energy was said to have lured monsters. It is an old legend no one believes now. However, being face to face with it now, that legend was true. He also recalls that this blade was taken later by the demonic clans, which resulted in countless of deaths among humans on the battlefield. But Vicar assures himself that that won't happen in this life, because it's now his. He then put all his strength into pulling out the sword. But something unexpected happens. The sword energy instead start to dissolve, getting Vicar scared. The sword energy start to enter inside of Vicar's hand. Finally, after everything has completely entered his hand, another thing starts to happen and the sword suddenly manifests from his hand. Vicar clenches his fist and is excited that a blade made from the corpse of a devil's holy constellation is now in his possession. He is also excited to have received the Beelzebub. It also makes him wonder how much stronger he'll be in this life. He's really excited to find out. After acquiring the sword, Vicar states that it doesn't seem like there's anything else for him to obtain, so he guesses it's time for him to head back. But he suddenly starts to feel something strange. He stands still, unable to understand this feeling, but suddenly falls to the ground, making him worry even more as he questions himself on what the hell is going on. He feels dizzy, no, he feels hungry. Beelzebub that's embedded in his hand suddenly starts growling. In his mind, he asks it if it's asking for something to eat. Anyhow, he gathers all his strength to get out of the dungeon. But, upon getting outside, he feels such voracious hunger wringing the inside of his stomach. This feeling also makes him feel like he can smell something delicious. Immediately, Beelzebub resurfaces on his palm. Out of shock, Vicar asks if there's something to eat over to where Beelzebub is dragging him to. Upon getting there, he sees that this is the corpse of the hellhound that he killed earlier. Beelzebub immediately sticks its proboscis to the body of the hellhound and starts sucking. Vicar finally feels his insides reverting back to normal since he's absorbing the blood of the hellhound through Beelzebub. He guesses it's been starving for a long time. He also hopes Le Rouge at Lenore Mountain's trees and soil being dried up isn't due to Beelzebub's ludicrous hunger. This also makes him wonder how much he would have to feed it in order to console its bastard's binge-eating disorder. It has finally finished consuming the hellhound. Beelzebub, glutton of flies. First slot, hemorrhage hellhound B+. Second slot, none. Third slot, none. This makes Vicar question and wonder if this is Beelzebub's inherent ability. Beelzebub the glutton of flies. It is said to possess the power to absorb the opponent's skill into its own. Since the absorption amount was nearly infinite, countless people are said to have lost their abilities and turned obsolete, but due to it being hazardous, Vicar can only steal up to 3 abilities now. The Hellhound Hemorrhage, a skill that constantly pumps out the blood of the opponent even through the smallest of wounds. This gives Vicar an idea. If he can steal abilities, standing before the Cerberus, Beelzebub again goes berserk, scaring Vicar. But it just goes straight to devour the Cerberus. Vicar, feeling relieved, say to Beelzebub that it can't devour all of it, because if it's too damaged, he won't be able to explain during the autopsy. While it's still eating, Vicar notices something else, and immediately taps Beelzebub, shouting, "Enough!" And he sees this. First slot, burn injury Cerberus A+. Second slot, hemorrhage hellhound B+. Third slot, high-speed regeneration, Norvegious sewer rat F. He is shocked to see high-speed regeneration, but sees the Norvegious sewer rat, so he guesses it consumed the sewer rat that was crushed under the Cerberus. He picks up the sewer rat and say that it's a great achievement to have acquired the burn injury skill from the Cerberus. Since thermalgia is one of the worst pain a human could experience, it will be much worse than the hellhound's hemorrhage. Finally, he say that now that he's done preparing the monster to submit for the practical exam, he'll just wait until it's over. The hounds whose practical examinations were completed returned to Baskerville. The respective evaluation followed suit, and the young hounds received a shield, sword, or necklace as their reward, produced from parts of the monsters they hunted during the practical exams. And one of the monsters that a young hound had hunted astonished the Baskervilles who were present. The news is brought to Hugo Le Baskerville, who in shock asks who caught what. They tell him that it's young Master Vicar Van Baskerville, from the 8-year-old class, who accidentally crossed over to the restricted area during the practical exam and hunted the Cerberus of a plus risk rating. Hugo then tells Barrymore that the Cerberus is a high-ranking monster that even the family's guardian knights tends to avoid. So Barrymore adds that it was stated that the monster was wounded by the barbarian tribe. On top of that, he applied poison on his wooden spear, which make Hugo asks him what kind of poison would be lethal enough to kill the Cerberus, and how that bastard was able to obtain it. Well, Barrymore tells him that there's nothing more that's reported in the hunting journal, but says that he did mean to ask the young master, but the young master returned to his room stating that he was tired. Somehow this makes Hugo smile as he says that little brat is already so sly, stating that it's true that information is power, and power is your worth. Barrymore then tell him that he was truthfully shocked to think a master named Van and not La or La would be so talented. Hugo responds saying that he guess he doesn't know. Confused, Barrymore then asks, "Pardon?" So he excitedly tells Barrymore that he is not like the previous patriarchs, that when he raises a hound, he doesn't discriminate based on their bloodline, and it doesn't matter whether they come from the lines of royals or whores, that as long as they have enough talent and spite, and that it also means that there can be mutts coming from royal bloodline. So he asks John Barrymore if he understands, but Barrymore first wonder if Hugo is concerned for his second son, and apologize for his statement, and Hugo tell him that it's alright but he'll need a mood booster. Barrymore understands and immediately say that he'll summon Master Vicar. Vicar has been summoned, standing before the patriarch Hugo Le Baskerville. Hugo then tell Vicar that he heard that he caught the Cerberus during his practical exam, so he asks him how he did that. Vicar immediately respond with a straight face, telling Hugo that he put chocolate on his wooden spear. Chocolate, Hugo asks, and Vicar says yes, that for a cannid monster, chocolate is a lethal poison. So Hugo asks him if that's why he asks for chocolate before, and he says yes. Sir John Barrymore is amazed, thinking. He states that they are getting right into the topic without so much as a greeting. So he questions if this is really a conversation between a father and son. Hugo, still conversing with Vicar, tells him that he heard that he did not respond properly when the butler questioned him about the hunt. So he asks Vicar why. Vicar, without a moment wasted, tells Hugo that it is because the butler is not his master. So Hugo asks him who his master is, and he responds saying that since he belongs to the clan, then the master of the clan is his master as well. Hugo smile and tell him that he has learned well. Also Hugo tells him that as a reward, the corpse of the monster he hunted will solely belong to him, adding that if he has a wish, he will grant it since he has scored the highest. In Vicar's mind he says, yes, finally, I'll be able to obtain what I want. So, he makes his request, asking for access to the 10,000 Epistle Library. The 10,000 Epistle Library. It is one of the largest libraries in the Empire that is located deep within the heart of the Baskerville clan. Hugo Le Baskerville stays calm and asks Vicar if he is aware that only the Patriarch and the second-in-command, along with their direct descendants, are allowed to access it. Vicar, already given up on getting access, tells Hugo that if it is not permitted, he'll give up, also thinking that he guesses his only choice now is to sneak in, but is extremely shocked to hear Hugo just grant him access. With a proud smile on Hugo's face, he tells Vicar to make sure he read the Baskerville 6th technique, which is located within the 6th restricted zone deep inside the library. Vicar gets more surprised the more Hugo talks, thinking how Hugo just gave him access and also advised him on reading the 6th technique. He questions if the Hugo he knows is going to allow a bastard kid to read the Baskerville 6th technique, stating that there has never been a case that an illegitimate child with the Van middle name was allowed to go past the 4th technique. Regardless, he tells himself that there's no need to be shaken, and that it's only the 6th technique. Hugo's current cultivation level is the Baskerville 7th technique. Before Vicar's regression, Hugo was able to bear 9 of his fangs, and Vicar hasn't forgotten the life of discrimination as an illegitimate child. So he promised himself that in this lifetime, he will surpass Hugo, because he will obtain the great essence of Baskerville, the textbook of swordsmanship containing the teachings of the first patriarch who was able to subjugate the 7 great disasters. But he questions who would give that to him. The answer is Hugo Le Baskerville. Hugo Le Baskerville will be the one to hand it over to him. Hugo, feeling proud, tells Vicar that he looks forward to it and wishes him good luck. Vicar pays his respects by bowing and tells Hugo that he'll be sure to pass his expectations, thinking in his mind that Hugo won't even understand the true value of the random book he would hand over to him. Standing guard to the door of the library are 2 trained Baskerville warriors. After walking in, Vicar feels it to finally be in the 10,000 Epistle Library, because it's his first time coming in here in person. Severing incisors, grinding molars, piercing canines, snagging tooth that embeds twice, wisdom teeth that lay down, books about swordsmanship. The books on swordsmanship that Vicar desperately wanted to learn in his past life are all here. Looking at all this, Vicar states that no matter how much mana an illegitimate child of Baskerville had, they can't learn any swordsmanship that's superior to the 4th technique, and another to ensure that the children who become hounds don't bare their teeth towards their master. The Baskerville family implemented this as a defense mechanism. He stands before a book locked with chain. He questions if this is it. But to think that Hugo would offer him the swordsmanship book on the 6th technique, if it was before he regressed, he would have never dreamt of this. Well, of course he knows that Hugo allowed this, thinking that an 8-year-old child wouldn't be able to memorize this in a day. He then unlocks it and begins to read through. Before his regression, he learned the 1st to 4th technique until he got sick of it. It was to deduce and speculate the theory of the 5th technique. Vicar also recalls that after drawing the 4th tooth, he needed to have stopped the flow of mana, so he questions if that's why he couldn't make the 5th tooth. The Baskerville swordsmanship, depending on the stage of the sword, it's 1 tooth for the 1st technique, 2 teeth for the 2nd, and so on. And when you draw teeth, a special trait, a red sword energy appears. Vicar, after going through the book which contains 6th technique, with a smile on his face, say that he doesn't care about the 6th technique, but since the real reason why he came to the 10,000 Epistle Library is different, a stage he desire that's higher than that. He goes to outmeet the guards, but they are shocked to see him out already, so they one even ask him why he's out already and tell him that swordsmanship books and other books are deep within the library. The other tell him that if he has forgotten something, they can get it for him. But he replies, telling them that he has finished what he came here for. And they ask, already, and tell him to stay here longer and look around. He still refuses, but tells them not to worry and go do what they need to do, that he plans on reading other books before leaving. As he walk, the guards talk with each other, saying that that place is filled with miscellaneous book. Yeah, the other one says that if it was him, he would read about textbook on swordsmanship that are deep within the library. They even question if he doesn't know their worth because he's young. Vicar doesn't mind them, and decides to leave them to their thoughts, since they don't know that amongst the dusty miscellaneous books lies a hidden treasure. Walking around to find the book he is looking for, he stumbles upon a book that catches his eye. It's the book, he found it. The title, A Lurking Ambush. Seeing the name, he gets excited because he's sure this is the book. The book on the basis of the 1st technique that the Baskerville children don't read. Due to its ripped pages, it's a useless miscellaneous book. But only Vicar knows the true worth of this book. Before his regression, in the hound squad that he was affiliated to, he found a strange relic in the dungeon that was on the border of La Rouge at Lenore Mountain. It was a page from a swordsmanship textbook. It was a single ripped page, a page with Baskerville's handwriting on the page. Hugo, who found this remarkable, goes through the whole library trying to find the book that matched the page. That was the swordsmanship book, A Lurking Shadow. In this book where the Baskerville ancestors wrote in, there is a Baskerville 10th technique written in it. Hugo, who had gone crazy for the 10th technique, released the hounds and found the remaining 6 pages that had the technique written on them. Hugo, who then found out that the remaining pages were hidden in the 7 great families, declared war on the other families and sent hounds to those who had refused. After the sacrifice of so many hounds, all the missing pages were given to Hugo, and the reward for doing all that was the guillotine. Vicar, before his regression, kneeling before Hugo. Hugo congratulates him on his achievements and accomplishments, saying, "Good job." Remembering all that makes Vicar blood boil, and he say that it was a stupid life. He also continues, saying that because of that, Hugo broke through the 7th technique and achieved the 9th technique, and under him was a pile of hound corpses and blood. But Vicar say that that won't happen in this life. The hound that reclaimed all those pages was Vicar himself. He remembers all the content that were written on those pages, and the reason why he couldn't go past the 4th wall was because he had no access to the original book. Vicar sits on the ground and begins to read the book. It states, the first step to the 10th technique is similar to the first technique. When you unsheath your sword, draw the first path and show aggression. That's when the sword exceeds its natural limit. Vicar then say that if other people read this book, it really does seem like a miscellaneous book that doesn't make any sense. But the moment you use the missing pages and fill in the blanks, the false and misleading information turns into an amazing masterpiece of a book. Vicar reached the highest level of graduator aura and the highest level of the 4th technique before he regressed. Now he tells himself that before he reaches 15, he needs to reclaim the power he had before he regressed. He spends his night in the library, reading up till morning without stopping. He just sits there comfortable reading until finally he closed the book, saying, "This is enough." He notices his bright surrounding and turned to see if he focused for the whole day. Thanks to that, he was able to memorize the book's content from start to end too. He gets up and checks around, saying that he doesn't feel the presence of the guardian knights. He uses this opportunity to try and practice the 10th teeth, knowing that he cannot draw the 10th teeth with a young body. He thinks that he should be able to achieve the 5th technique that he wasn't able to reach in his previous life. With immense focus, he sees himself in his mind, standing before a grown figure. Then, with a fierce look, he fills his hand with aura. He uses the Baskerville first technique to make the first horizontal slash, slashing off its head. The next move is the 2nd technique, which causes multiple damage to the figure. Then the 3rd technique, the 4th technique, almost completely erasing the figure. And lastly, with a very bold smile on his face, he recalls that his previous life was pathetic. After his hard work, he was able to obtain the highest level of graduator aura, but he wasn't able to learn a suitable technique, so the people of the direct bloodline was hostile towards him. There was just one reason why he couldn't go past the stage of the 5th technique. It was because he was born an illegitimate child. Back to the fight, he reforms the figure, going for the attack with serious ferocity. He says, "Do you think I'll live that life again?" With his full gaze at the figure, going in for the attack, his mind turns the figure to Hugo Le Baskerville's figure, and with an unseen attack, Vicar Van Baskerville completely destroys the figure, causing an explosion, and Vicar, with a satisfied look on his face, he finally comes out of the mind training and, looking at his palm, he say that it's still weak, but he was able to draw the 5th tooth. Now, he rejoices. It felt like something hot from deep within his heart emerged and shot up to his neck. Vicar was so happy that he could do the 5th technique to the point he could cry. He looks around, checking if there's a sword around. At a record-breaking speed in Baskerville's history, a young hound's canine teeth bared towards his master were growing. The formula of the sword cultivation levels: Mage first circle is equal to Sword Expert low rank, also equal to Baskerville first technique. Mage second circle is equal to Sword Expert mid rank, also equal to Baskerville second technique. Mage third circle is equal to Sword Expert high rank, also equal to Baskerville third technique. Mage fourth circle is equal to Graduator low rank, also equal to Baskerville fourth technique. Mage fifth circle is equal to Graduator mid rank, also equal to Baskerville fifth technique. Mage sixth circle is equal to Graduator high rank, also equal to Baskerville sixth technique, also leads to the Graduator highest rank. Mage seventh circle is equal to Swordmaster, also equal to Baskerville seventh technique. Vicar acknowledges that he has finally succeeded in drawing the fifth tooth, and as long as his mana can support it, he can reach the level he reached before he regressed. His mana capacity has definitely increased as well, and it looks like it has reached another level as well. And the liquid aura, the signs of a graduator. It looks like he has gone from a high-rank sword expert to a low-rank graduator, a point that took him 30 years to reach. He can't believe he has managed to reach it at 8 years old. Graduator are on a completely different level from sword experts. The solid aura starts to turn into liquid aura. The density also increases and allows it to be used more freely. Vicar also states that his swordsmanship is also much better than before he regressed, and that he won't be stopped at the 5th technique but a sword technique that can reach the 10th technique with endless possibilities. The piercing gang that he learned previously. Although it was true that he can get stronger in a shorter period of time, it had its limitations. On the hand, the lurking ambush. It's a perfect sword technique that can smoothly transition between offense and defense with no growth limitation. He puts the book by the window side and say that he knows that if he puts his mind into it, he might even be able to challenge a mid-class graduator, calculating based on analysis. He says that he'd have 100% chance with the assassination, and about 50% if he faced the graduator head-on, but also states that the only issue would be how much he should show to Hugo Le Baskerville. After all that, he says that he can't show off too much or too little of his strength. He needs to give Hugo something to look forward to, so that he'll have enough time to take everything he needs. Using a magnifying glass on his waists, Vicar Van Baskerville uses sunlight to begin burning the book, and with a terrifying grin on his face, he watches as the book burns, saying that with this, Hugo and the hounds will have a hard time reaching the 10th technique. Of course, that excludes him. Suddenly, the guards appear from behind because of the smoke, about to ask Vicar what he's doing. Vicar immediately starts to apologize, telling them that sorry, that he accidentally left the magnifying glass around and it burned the book. He puts on a pity face, and also tell them that if they need to report it, he'll be sure to let the butler know. But they both sigh and tell him that it's not something that he should apologize for, and that it's their fault for not looking after him properly. That they are even glad that he was in an area with only useless books. Vicar then smile and tell them that it's true and that he doesn't think the book was even worth a while one. So he asks them if they aren't going to be busy with the Morgue clan regarding the Morgue's mines, and that he didn't think that they'd have to deal with small problems like this. They also smile and tell him that since they weren't here to begin with, then this is a small price to pay. That as long as he is willing to keep it a secret, they'll follow his lead. As he walk away, he say to them that they should all keep it a secret between themselves. So he apologizes for taking their busy time, and they both agree, shouting, "Yes, sir." After that, the guards talk amongst themselves, feeling relieved. One say that Master Vicar is such a nice person, and the other affirms it, saying that he even thinks about the worker. Vicar smile as he hear them say that he deserves to be respected. Later that day, Vicar had to report to Patriarch Hugo Le Baskerville's office. Standing before the Patriarch, Vicar is asked if he has had some enlightenment, and his reply of some sort gets Hugo excited. So he asks Vicar to tell him what he learned in the library. Pretending to be thinking, Vicar says, something warm and sharp, yet soft and viscous. He says that that's what he has felt. This really shocks Hugo and Barrymore, even making Barrymore ask him if he's really talking about his aura. Aura, the sign that you've officially entered the world of the sword. Even geniuses have to train without rest until the age of 15 in order to reach the level of low-class sword expert. Hugo tries to calm himself, asking himself what he's getting excited for, stating that the boy is merely an 8-year-old child. So he asks Vicar if he can show him what that is. And of course, he accepts. At the Baskerville family arena, on the outside, inside the arena, the children question themselves, wondering what's going on. Meanwhile, Vicar is down on the arena ground, standing with a sword on his hand. Patriarch Hugo and John Barrymore also in the arena. Barrymore asks Sir Hugo how he's planning on testing the young master's skills. So, Hugo tell him that he was planning on releasing a monster for him to deal with. The gate within the arena that holds the monster begins to open. Vicar standing before the gate. Hugo tell Barrymore that he made sure to prepare a hungry and feisty monster for Vicar. And from the gate, a guard walks a monster inside the arena. It's an orc with a risk rating of C. The children are surprised to see an orc, with one asking his friend if he doesn't think it's an overkill to send an orc to deal with an 8-year-old, that he needs to be at least 15 to handle it, but later say that he guessed the guardian knight will get involved if needed. Hugo gets up and speaks to the guard that brought the orc. He asks him to take off the chain and release the orc, which the guard does, and let loose an angry orc. After being free, the orc lets out a very loud roar, causing some sound wave. The orc then immediately plunges towards Vicar. Vicar doesn't waver, but stands still with his resolve. He exhales softly. The orc makes its first move, but its attack is met with a swift slash from Vicar, causing the children to be in shock. The orc is still in shock, confused as to what just happened, without acknowledging that Vicar is still coming for it with full speed. Vicar cuts off one of its leg with a single move, causing the orc to fall and growl in pain. Vicar turns to look at it, and it also turns back to look at Vicar with fear in its eyes. Vicar, knowing that the orc must be surprised that it's bleeding for the first time, and that the orc distinctive skill, high-speed regeneration, won't activate either. He states that C-class monsters won't be able to stop the hemorrhage caused by a B-class hellhound. This display of talent leaves everyone amazed and shocked, as some even question if he's only 8, questioning how strong he really is. Some even ask if it's possible to do that without collecting mana. But the patriarch stays quiet watching Vikir, with so many thoughts going through his head. Vikir also turned to look at him, stating that he is sure the patriarch is still trying to determine what he's learned in the library. So he tells himself that he'll show the patriarch what he wants to see. It appears Vikir has started to show something which the patriarch can't believe he's seeing. Even Barrymore can't hold in his emotion as he shouts, asking if that's or a blade. Vikir finally show it to them all that he can use aura. As the orc tries to get up slowly, he's instantly met with an overwhelming power that he has no chance of dodging. Its head is blown off from a single strike from Vikir's attack. This display really put the patriarch on his toes. Looking at Vikir, Sir Barrymore say that he's certain that that's the aura of a low-class sword expert. He then proceed to congratulate Sir Hugo, saying, "Congratulations, sir. Seems we've just witnessed the birth of a genius." Sir Hugo, still in shock, clears his throat and asks Barrymore if that's what he think. Barrymore then responds saying that among all the families of the Empire, he doesn't think there would ever be a genius like this. But Hugo suddenly stops him from talking, telling him that it seems like something is wrong with the orc. Barrymore asks, "Pardon?" So he tells Barrymore that orcs are known for their regeneration, and as he can see, its blood isn't stopping. And finally tells Barrymore that Vikir only won because the orc was much weaker. But Barrymore thinks, why can't he just express his happiness? Out of the blue, Vikir asks his father Hugo to wait. Hugo looks confused, and Vikir suddenly asks if there's anything stronger than the orc. Please like, share, and subscribe for the next part.